Hi, and welcome back to Beyond the Monsters. Today I have Savannah here with us,
Hi.
and she just flew in from Washington State, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Savannah.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me and you guys choosing my story.
Yes, first
Yeah.
time sharing your story, right?
First time.
Okay. Well, let's dive in. Wherever you want to start is good. Some people start from childhood. Some people start, in adulthood when things started happening in their life. It's totally up to you. Wherever you're comfortable.
Okay. So for me, I grew up in a house with domestic violence.
Okay.
Just kind of seeing my mom navigate her relationships and marriages. Um, I really didn't understand how that would manifest into my life later on when it came to my dating choices, or the people, I guess, that encountered me. And so it really made me have to re-examine like my standards, boundaries, and expectations, not only for myself, but for the people that I allow in my circle. And my story is a little interesting because my family played a part in my betrayal. Um, so that's one of the parts of, I guess, when we talk about grief and processing grief, how that works. It's just been an interesting journey for me in that way.
Sure.
And so because I had grown up in that kind of house, it kind of set the trajectory of like my job choices. So I joined the Army around 21,
Okay.
and I joined as an MP. I was in for 5 years, got out of the service, and then transitioned straight into civilian law enforcement. And so I met my now ex-husband back in 2017.
Okay.
And this was kind of around the time when I was getting ready to transition out of the service. And, when we started dating, you hit things off and you have all, the great conversations and the honeymoon
Yes.
phase. And then you start to notice that there are some, issues that arise in your communication styles. And
Was he military too?
yes.
Okay.
And so he had been in a lot longer than there's an age gap. And so he had been in a lot longer than I had. And so he was getting ready to, I think he had probably about like 5 more years left before he was set to retire when we had first started dating. And so I remember him telling me about his previous marriages, which, law enforcement, military it kind of just comes with the
Right.
lifestyle of stress and,
Sure.
everything else added into the equation, how we both grew up individually. So we ended up kind of being off and on for a little while, which was interesting. And then it got to the point where I said, okay, I'm getting ready to go into civilian law enforcement and I really want something stable and I want to start my family and I want to, I'm just at a certain point that I
Right.
feel like my life should be progressing in this way. And he was very adamant on not starting a family in the service and not doing it that way. And so I said, okay, well, I think we want separate things and that's okay. So we're just going to separate. And so I separated and I was about probably like 2 years into civilian law enforcement where I met my son's dad.
Okay.
And that was a very interesting thing within its own because at this point I'm telling myself, hey, I'm 31, I'm set in my career, I'm financially comfortable, emotionally stable, like physically, spiritually, like we're in a great spot. But I didn't know that my family in the background was doing certain things to kind of sabotage our relationship. And so we ended up separating because at the time I didn't know. And it was
So
just
your family, they weren't normally like toxic like that you knew of?
that I knew of.
Okay.
It wasn't as blatant to me. And then, of course, with family and titles, you tend to give them a little bit more grace than you would a stranger, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
have this expectation of, well, you're my family, so I expect you to act this way with me.
Right.
I expect you to be as genuine and kind and empathetic and as loyal as I am, because the things that have been done to me, I would never conceive to do that to you. Right. And
Right.
so my son's dad and I end up splitting up because our relationship at that point had been tumultuous based off of things that weren't necessarily true, which I didn't know at the time. Um, and this was right before I had my son. So I left my son's dad when my son was a newborn, like he wasn't
Oh,
even here yet. And that was
doing
an
that all
interesting
yourself.
journey of
Yeah.
entering back into single like parenthood, having to grieve the process that I thought I was going to enter motherhood in. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I really wanted to break this generational like cycle, this generational trauma of single parenthood, of unhealthy relationships. And I thought
Right.
I was doing everything right. And to get to that point where I'm like, I still got it wrong. And I was like, okay, well, he's here now. I have to do what I have to do. So my schedule was very interesting at that point. I would literally wake up at 4 a.m., get myself ready, get my now baby ready, strap him in passenger seat in my patrol vehicle,
So you're a
drop him
police
off.
officer
Yeah,
now. Okay.
dropped him off at my mom's place because she was still working from home because of COVID. Go on patrol for the day, get off at 16:30, so 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
Um, rush back home, drop my uniform in the garage, change into civilian clothes, and then drive to campus to do class at UW.
Girl, it's a
And that
lot.
that was my
Yes.
schedule for my son's 3 now.
With a newborn.
Hmm. And I still ended up having to take breaks in between work because of my son's he just has needs, and being a single parent, it was like it kept getting to the point where the city, they were great, but it was like, hey, we understand that these are your circumstances at home, but that can't take away necessarily from what we have to do here.
Right.
And so not having the support that I needed, is just very hard to continue to be consistent at that job when you don't
Yeah.
have the support
Dad's
you need.
totally out of the picture at this point,
No,
or
so dad's back into the picture.
okay.
And then we're going to put a pin on that, because
Okay.
the ending of my marriage with my now ex-husband was the reason that my son's dad came back into the picture. And we had to have a very honest conversation with each other that we weren't able to have because my
Okay.
family was still in the picture in the background.
Okay.
The plot thickens.
Yes, it does.
So I reunite with my son's dad.
Okay.
And excuse me, I'll take that back. I meet my now ex-husband again in 2023, at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. So the whole time that my son is now, I don't know, almost 2.5. And so I hadn't been involved with my son's dad. We weren't talking. He had him for visitation every now and then, and that was that.
Okay.
My now ex-husband comes back into the picture, and he knows everything, because we now have about 9.5 years of knowing each other. And so he's met my family, he knows my mom, he knows my sister. He knew what happened in previous relationships, like the works. And so he's like, hey, you're still this strong, ambitious girl that I met, and I would really love to come back into your life and like be the guy that I couldn't be the first time that we dated, because I wasn't
Okay.
ready. And I said, okay, well, that's great that you're telling me that, but I need consistency and behavior changes in the
Yes.
works. And so he's flying in from Chicago every month. Every month he was flying in for about a year. And it got towards
Okay.
the end of 2024, November 2024. And he said, okay, like, I think it's time that you guys move from Washington to Chicago. And we had gotten married a few months prior to that. And so I said, okay, like, this just makes sense. We're not going to
Right.
do a long distance marriage. You've already come to Washington so many times. Like, he's going through the works. We met with my legal team to change my parenting plan. He's coming to all of my son's doctor's appointments, meeting with their doctors, asking what their needs are. He's the one that's behind the scenes calling the hospitals in Chicago to make sure that my son has adequate care when we show up to Chicago. I mean, I literally
So he's
just,
stepping up.
oh, 1000%
Yeah.
asked for my hand in marriage in front of my mom, my whole family, like the works, right?
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, like he's serious this time.
Yeah.
You know, like we're not playing the games of me being in my early 20s at this point and you being
Right.
in your mid 30s. Like we're serious this time. So okay. And we're having all of the hard conversations. What are your expectations as far as sex is concerned in our relationship? What are your expectations as far as finances? How is this going to be split in the household? What do you expect me to contribute? How do you feel about setting boundaries with family? What does that look like? Um, I mean, I'm pulling out all the hard questions,
Right.
and he's answering them in a way that I'm like, okay, this can work.
Yeah.
The minute we get to Chicago, within the first few weeks, the mask starts slipping,
Mm.
and it starts slipping very quickly.
Well, he was only doing it once a month for so
Right.
long, and now it's
And it's,
real.
yep.
Yeah.
And it's a
Okay.
lot easier to hide your habits when you're not living in the same household as someone
Hmm.
versus when you are. Because
Right.
the one thing that you can't hide are habits.
It's the truth.
That's the one thing you
Yeah.
can't. So I'm going to see your morning routine. I'm going to see how you talk to yourself throughout the day, what you're living like, the
Hmm.
works. And it's a lot easier to show up in these different spaces with those different masks when there's nobody that's consistently able to watch you.
Right.
And I had met his friend group, and of course I had already met his family from when we dated back when I was in my 20s and he was in his mid
Yeah.
30s. And so we get to Chicago, and I'm realizing that he is not anywhere near where he said he was emotionally, financially, spiritually, not even physically.
Like, what kind of things were you noticing? Like, what was different?
So he has an office, a work office in his apartment. And for me, this was like a huge adjustment because I left my career. And when you leave law enforcement, a lot of people don't realize that once you leave that department, you lose all of seniority.
Mm-hmm.
You lose, there's nothing
Yes.
else going into that 401k, that 457, all of those LE benefits that you were getting, you're not getting anymore. When you step away, you step away completely.
Right.
Even if I got rehired from the same department, I still lose all seniority. So I don't get first
Start
pick on
over.
shit. You start
Yeah.
over. You
Yeah.
start over. And so I said, hey, I just wanted to make sure before we even got there, are you sure you're comfortable with me leaving my career right now? Because I got to a place where the schedule was hectic, but I was content.
Right.
And I said, hey, I'm leaving my home. And he said, no, that's fine. Just, you can keep it if you want, just rent it out. And I was going to do that anyway. If I was going to leave, I wasn't going to sell it because I had bought the house. And
Sure.
so, we get to Chicago, and again, I'm noticing the habits are not what he said it was. So he has this office, and in his office, he would, because he was working from home, he would go into his office and he would be in there, 5, 6 hours. And I get it, you're doing work. But I also noticed that he transitioned from working from home and being in his office to now going into the office more frequently and complaining and saying, oh, well, we have a new boss and, she requires this of me. And so I'm going to be out for a while and, I'm just going to start going to the office more frequently. And I said, okay. And I don't know why that little grumble in my stomach was like, okay, something's off. So I go in the office and the VA, of course, gives you medications for whatever you need when you're a
Mm-hmm.
veteran. He's a retiree. And I'm noticing that there are pill bottles that have different prescriptions with different providers' information on it. And we're talking about the heavy stuff, right? So we're talking
Mm.
about amphetamine, we're talking about muscle relaxers, we're talking about sleeping aids, we're talking about SSRI medication. And I'm like, you're not taking any of this how it's prescribed because I see that you drink and I see that you have your little marijuana pen because in Chicago statewide it's
Yeah.
legal, not legal federally, but it's legal
Right.
state.
Right.
And I'm like, you can't take these medications and drink the way that you do and utilize marijuana. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I want to have a conversation about what's going on. And he's like, no, I take them when I need to, and it's not like that, and there's nothing to be concerned about. And I said, okay, well, you're not taking your PTSD medication. You're not taking your SSRIs. You're
Yeah,
not
I was just
taking
gonna
anything
say
that you're not.
SSRIs. You don't just randomly take those when you feel like it.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
like it needs 6 to 8 weeks to get into your system and
Yes.
regulate, and you taking it inconsistently or not as prescribed, that's misuse of your
Oh
medication.
yeah.
And because I had left my career, he said, before we left, he said, I don't expect you to contribute anything. Just be a stay at home mom, focus on June, my son, and go to school. Because at this time I was getting ready to finish up school. And so we get there, and now he's complaining about being able to provide financially.
Mm.
And I said, okay, now I'm starting to get worried, because everything that you're telling me that made me leave Washington where I was content, now I'm here under your care. I don't have any family here.
Right.
I don't have any friends here. I've left my career.
Yeah, you're not working.
I'm financially dependent on you at this point now. And my child is here with me. Okay. He didn't know it. But when we had that conversation, I'm going down the checklist: the drug use, the alcohol use, financially not being where he said he was. And then I said, even emotionally, it's like, now you're starting to check out. You went from working from home, and now you're going into the office more, and now you're going to the gym more, and now I'm just not seeing you. So I'm in a city where
Sitting by yourself.
I'm in this tiny apartment, right? I went from my nice brand new 4-bedroom, 3-bath house with my backyard for my kiddo to like I left everything here
Yeah.
for you. I gave you that power. I gave you that position with the understanding of trust of like, I'm your wife, you're going to take care of me.
Right.
And now that I'm here and you have me in this position, I'm realizing that nothing that you said to me was true. And he lost it. He lost it. And he went to work the next day.
He was actually working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He went to work the next day. And we'll put a pin in that too, because wait till you find out what his job is.
Oh, Lord.
So
Okay.
I get a call from Jesse Brown, VA, and the psych ward calls me and says, hey, I just wanted to let you know that you're listed as the emergency contact for my husband. And I just wanted to let you know that he's here with us. And so I turned on my work brain and I said, okay, is he there voluntary or involuntary? Like, did he get picked up from law enforcement or did he walk himself in?
Right.
What's the mandatory? Is it a mandatory hold? What's going on? And so she's running down the checklist and she's letting me know, no, he just showed up for suicidal ideations. And I'm like, okay. It's very interesting that he had suicidal ideations after I confronted him about not being anywhere where he said he was before I left my career to come here.
Mm-hmm.
And after I get that call, his friends start calling me, texting me. His sister's calling me, texting me. Hey, we just got a call from the hospital. We just want to know like what's going on. Is he okay? Did you anticipate this happening? What's the issue? And I didn't want to go further into detail, but I'm like, he's no victim. He's no victim. And I've dealt with suicidal people, and this is not something to joke about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Especially when you're doing it conveniently, when you get called out for not being who you said you were.
Right.
So he comes back from the hospital, and
How long did they hold him? Like a 72 or?
a week.
Okay.
He was there for a week. So at this point, it's around Christmas time. I got there November 11th, 2024. Now it's around Christmas time after when this conversation and the visitation to the hospital happens. And he gets out of the hospital, and I'm trying to have a follow-up conversation with him, and I'm being met with the same thing of just, now he's being dismissive, now it's deflection, now it's, oh, well, you're asking for too much and it's an issue, I don't want to talk about this, it's shutting down, it's the stonewalling, it's Okay, well, what else do you need? You're asking for too much. You're being too sensitive,
Mm, of
right?
course, yes.
And now it's from this, what started out as this essential marital bliss when we first get there. It was literally like, this is happening, and I'm trying to process how quickly it is happening as it
Yeah.
is happening. And when I was having this follow-up conversation, it's like, maybe there's a little bit of hope. Maybe it's not what I think is happening is happening. And I'm starting to second guess myself of like, maybe I'm just not giving him enough grace. Maybe I'm overthinking it. And I'm not trying to put on my work brain, right? Because I don't, in
Yeah.
my mind, it's like, well, you're family. I don't need to be
Right.
able to put on my work brain in order to deal with you.
Yeah.
I'm expecting you to be honest and genuine and upfront
Exactly.
because you're my husband, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
where the now I'm starting to doubt myself. And we're getting invites from friends and family to go out, and I'm realizing there's a miscommunication there. So we stopped getting invited places. Excuse me, like he's trying to hide us. I think we were going to church and familiar with his church group. And it's like we would show up on Sundays, and he was this great church guy, and he's holding my son, and we're sitting there in service, and we're getting through service. And in my mind, it's like he's putting on this great
The whole
facade
show.
with churchgoers. He's putting on this great facade with friends and family of like, no, we're just, we're getting reacquainted with each other, and we don't really have any issues. But little do they know, like, what's really going on. And so at this point, I'm reaching out to his friends and family. And I'm like, hey, I don't know if he told you what is actually going on behind closed doors, but I think I've worked the street long enough to know when somebody's using uppers and downers together.
Right.
And he's not going to therapy like he's supposed to be going.
Oh, he wasn't.
He doesn't want to deal with it. And it's like he's picking and choosing what's convenient for him.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys, in some way, shape, and form, have been enabling him because when you guys get together, you guys go out to the bar, you guys go out to smoke. You're not knowing necessarily what his issues
That
are
he
or how
has.
severe
Yeah.
it is.
Right.
And this is the reminder of how abusers get community. Because when I spoke to family, when I spoke to friends, I was being met with the same minimizing attitude of, well, that's just how he is. Or, well, I'll pray for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was, even with his best friend, it's like, well, I don't think he did anything that he did thus far maliciously. I don't think that was his intent. And it's like, okay.
So no one was really listening to you.
No.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. Nobody was listening to me because he had already established a smear campaign the first night that we had that conversation before he checked into the hospital. And I went through his phone and I saw all of the text messages that he sent his friends and his family in a group chat to make it seem like I was just this crazy, jealous, insecure wife that's trying to separate him from his friends and family, and I'm trying to isolate him. And this is what I mean when it's like, you're the one you did that.
Right.
You've done that to me.
Right.
And when have I ever been crazy, jealous, or insecure? Am I insecure, or am I noticing that you're going to work more often? You're going to the gym.
No, you're calling him out.
We're staying here in this, exactly. We're staying here in this tiny apartment. I've explored more of Chicago by myself with my baby in tow than you have shown us.
Right.
You've intentionally made sure that I'm not hanging out with your friends because you're excluding us from the invites, even if you guys are going out. And then
because he already shit talked you and just, oh gosh.
Right.
He's good.
Oh, yeah.
And they all do the same things. That's why.
And he had these very nice houseplants that every morning the humidifier is going. He sprays these plants down. He's playing music for them. He's sweet talking them. I destroyed those houseplants. And when he comes back into the house, he's like, well, what's wrong? Now he's being my savior at this point. Like, let's sit down, let's talk about it because you're super angry and I want to know what's going on. And I said, you're upset about the houseplants. And the same way that you have shown care and attention and love and empathy and kindness to these houseplants is the very same things that I have done to invest in myself and get to a certain point where I was comfortable in motherhood, raising my son in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm here, and you've invited me into a world of chaos. And you know what your friends and family don't see? They don't see when you're crying at night. They don't see when you're being insecure about the things that have happened to you within your family dynamics. They're not
Mm-hmm.
pouring into you. And here I am with this full, beautiful cup of love that's running over. And you're giving me a cup of love that was rusted over and filled with piss. You know?
That's
Right?
a good one.
And I'm like, this can't be real. And then I'm like, when I'm trying to sit here and have an honest conversation with you and tell you, hey, my needs are not being met.
Right.
I didn't know that all of this was going on, but if this is a case, that's fine. I'm giving you the opportunity to be honest with me, and all you've done is double down and
Right.
continue to lie and continue to paint this picture to your friends and family of like, nope, she's just coming in, she's trying to change everything, she's asking for too much. She wants, she's financially draining me and this, that, and the fourth. And it's like, dude, if we're being honest, I made more money than you.
Mm-hmm.
If we're
That's what they
being
do, though. They
honest.
gather their people, and that's just what every one of them.
And once I had realized that I was just going to be met with the same attitude from everybody of, oh, and this was one friend in particular said, well, you need to take some accountability for how you got here too. And I said, well, imagine someone is flying into your state every month for a full year, sits down and has an honest conversation, what I thought was honest, with your own family,
Mm-hmm.
meets with your son's dad, meets with your legal team to change your co-parenting plan, marries you, says, I didn't do right by you the first time that you gave me an opportunity in our 20s. I want to do it. I'm ready. I'm a man. And then you give them an opportunity and they crap all over it. And it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
you're to blame. You're to blame because you believed him. You're to blame because you trusted him.
Of course, it's your fault now.
Right. And so it gets
Did
better.
anybody give you the benefit of doubt, though, to where they wanted to hear your side?
No.
Or was it basically just he already had them all brainwashed?
He already had his team because they all
Yeah.
benefit. And then I had to look at it from a higher perspective. If it's family and family has access to you in this way, shape, or form, meaning you've signed for their houses, you've signed for their cars when you were still active duty, you've helped them with bills, you've shown up in all these ways because you didn't have a wife and you didn't have kids that you had to focus on. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to lose access to you that way, right? Family, of course, is going to say, oh, no, we want to keep him single. We want to keep him in this. We
Right.
want to keep him this way because if anything goes wrong in our lives with our partners, we know at a minimum we'll still be able to fall back on him.
Right.
And he has always painted himself out to be the root of his family in that way. And as
Okay.
far as friends, his guy friends, it's like, well, he's the chaotic friend. He's the one that we go out and we have a good time and he's still single and we watch him pick up all the ladies and we live kind of vicariously through him. And that's just what it is. So, of course, if he's a good, fun, chaotic friend, well, we don't want to see what you're like as a dad.
Right.
We don't want to see what you're like when you have responsibilities and you don't, you're not coming out and entertaining us anymore. And then it got even better. So that same phone conversation where I'm seeing what he's saying with his friends and families, and he sent them the screenshots of the plants, the house plants, I see conversations between him and his ex.
Oh.
And that young lady, I had a phone conversation with her through his sister. So I called his sister over. His sister came over and I said, hey, Jenny, I just want you to know that I know that your brother is still trying to talk to his most recent ex because I saw a few text messages in English and in Vietnamese. Obviously, he was using like a partial translator.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, no, I don't like his ex-girlfriend she's in like a happy relationship. And she's like, like we're friends. We've gone out a couple times and she's happily in a relationship. Like, no, I don't think they're talking to each other at all. And I said, okay, call her. So we get on the phone together and she's like, no, the last time him and I were together was in October. I flew out in November.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
What's his sister's reaction?
It's almost like she wasn't surprised. She wasn't surprised. It was just like, well, another one bites the dust. Here we go again.
So she didn't have compassion like for you or anything like that?
I think maybe she did, as like someone who else was a single mom.
Yeah.
Because she's had her own struggles in relationships. And so I think from that perspective, it was just like, yes, that's my brother. But at the same time, I want this girl to know what's going on because I don't think anybody else is going to tell her. So at a minimum, I'm going to show her
Okay.
this kind of respect just because I can understand from this perspective. But her loyalty was still not to me at the end of the day, right? And so he comes back to the apartment and I say, hey, I just got off the phone with your ex-girlfriend, Christy. And she says that the last time that you and her were together was in October. I said, I flew out here in November. You and I were already married back in August.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine me exchanging vows with you and before God, the same God that you're praying to every Sunday in church, that you want to act like with your church friends that you're so in touch with, right?
Mm-hmm.
The person that I exchanged vows with, you mean to tell me that it wasn't even honest from the beginning? Because you're impulsive, because you have substance use issues, because you have insecurity issues. And the very same thing that you have tried to weaponize against me of, well, you're strong. You've always been strong.
What was his response? I mean, could you just see it on his face or did he just flat out lie?
No. He leaned forward on the kitchen counter. And that's when I saw the face change. And he said, now you know, now what? Now that you know, now what?
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. I was ready to give Lorena Bobbitt a run for the title.
Right.
Okay. Eileen Wuornos, she would have been erased from the history books. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, this is, you're never going to hear from me again. Never. And so what he didn't know was after we had the first conversation that we had before he went into the psychiatric hospital for suicidal ideations, I called my retirement and I said, hey, I need to pull out this amount. When can I have it by? And she said, well, we, got to give us a couple of days to clear the check before we can give it to you. And, there's different ways that you can check it out or whatever. And I was like, no, I just need this amount. I don't want to touch the rest. Please just give me this. I'm kind of in an emergency. And she was super nice. She said, yep, I'll give you a confirmation email when it comes out. He didn't know that though.
So your gut knew though. You knew.
Yeah. But I still had to wait.
Right.
So I'm trying to play nice while still trying to get the full information because I knew that wasn't the full picture.
Mm-hmm.
And, he didn't know at the time that I had pulled that money out. So at that end point where I'm like, okay, we're done. This is like this is it. Especially after finding out about the ex still being in the picture, I packed my stuff up while I was playing Fleetwood Mac in the background. Dreams, yeah. And he's like, what's going on? And
I'm
like,
not laughing at you. I'm totally laughing with you because
And I said, you need to stay at a friend's house for however long it takes for my family to get here to help us move, because I absolutely refuse to, I don't want to see you. Right. I don't want to see you. I don't want to put myself in a situation where you're no longer here.
Right.
And I'm no longer here.
Yeah.
So I call my mom. I say, I need you to come pick me up. And she said, okay, well, I'm flying out towards that way anyway, because my niece was at school. And so she said, yeah, I'm flying out that way anyway. That's fine. So everything's packed up, put everything in the van. I say, you need to buy our airplane tickets to at least get us back. And I need at least something because I've already left my career. Like right. I'm leaving now with nothing. And so he sent $10,000 and was like, here, that should at least cover you for enough time. And I'm like, sure, bud. That's
where did he come up with 10 grand though? He couldn't even pay the bills.
It either came from his family or the ex. It's the only two things that I can think of.
Right.
And so we get back to Washington And of course, when you're separated and you have like the mental clarity now that you guys are not together
Yeah.
anymore, you're like, how did I just experience this level of emotional whiplash?
Mm-hmm.
I was just lied to, manipulated. My reality was questioned.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with the grief again of someone who knew all of the struggles that I went through in previous relationships
Mm-hmm.
and put me through it worse. I was isolated, left my stability, and just went into chaos.
And then you're probably sitting there thinking, like, how did I ever get myself in that situation?
Right.
Like, why didn't I see it? Why didn't I? Yeah, I can imagine.
And it wasn't until it was funny because once I got back to Washington, I had a conversation with one of my professors, and he's like, "You're great at your job, but you didn't use that same brain, those same skills that you have when it came to your intimate life partners. You gave them more grace because you're not expecting, right, from
Mm-hmm.
this person who knows your family
Right.
or has sat down at your dinner table. You're not expecting those same things from this person."
I don't think we ever do when
No.
we're in it.
Mm-mm.
When you're in it, you don't see things like that.
And when we talk about domestic violence and emotional abuse and financial abuse and reproductive abuse, because he definitely wanted to make sure that I was on birth control, even though he was pollinating everybody else's gardens, for being quite frank.
Oh,
Um, and that wasn't even it. He was sleeping with multiple people. Like there were apps in this phone, gals, guys, the works,
whoa.
like a sex addiction. It was literally like drug addict, sex addict. But I mean, the trifecta all kind of comes together.
Sure.
And of course, when I had the inkling that he was potentially cheating before I found out about his ex still being in the picture, all sexual activity between us stopped. And I immediately went and got checked, and thank
Oh,
the
good.
Lord that I came back clean. And I
Yeah.
even, once I got back, I still went to do a follow up to make sure that I was. But I don't think that's talked about enough in relationships,
Mm-mm.
especially in terms of like infidelity when that occurs. It's like
Yeah.
you're not even just emotionally and psychologically cutting this person down that entrusted you. You're physically putting this person's health at risk because
Yes.
who you lay with is hygiene. It's no different than the soaps that you put on your body, the
Mm-hmm.
shampoo that you use, and you have
I
no
agree.
idea who else this person is sleeping with, right? And if your ex-girlfriend is comfortable sharing you with everyone because that was the agreement that you guys had,
And she obviously knew you guys were married,
she
right?
knew she knew about me. She knew about me. Everybody knew about me. Everybody. But if you, and then I had to look at it like this: if he already has access to people that are comfortable having him in the way that they do, meaning the ex-girlfriend doesn't mind sharing him
Right.
physically, financially, as long as he comes home, right? She doesn't mind that he has a boy toy somewhere that he can get his fix from, for however that works, because, well, this is our agreement. His family's not going to care because, okay, well, he still provides for us this way. His friends are not going to care
So
because
they
they're
all
just
just
going to say,
condone his behavior,
it
let
was
it
it
happen.
was the whole,
Mm-mm-mm.
it's like literally like a whole community. It's one little person up against a whole community, and then everyone's going to say, well, you're crazy, you're
Mm-hmm.
asking for too much, you should have known better, you should
Right.
take some accountability. So now we're back in Washington and more stuff is coming out because at this point I really had to do a self-examination of the three tumultuous relationships that I've had in my life, and in different ways, and how I grew up played a part in that. And so I had quite a few honest conversations with my mother, which has never happened.
Okay,
My
good.
mother was the kind of person that what happens in this house stays in this house. You don't ask questions, you stay in a
Mm-hmm.
child's place. And so we never had that kind of dialogue, which meant that I never had the dating vetting process. We never had those conversations.
Right.
And so how the generational trauma gets passed down is, well, I grew up watching you get physically hit. I grew up in a household where he controlled the finances. He was the breadwinner and you stayed. And even though I tried so hard not to repeat these cycles, I'm still noticing that it showed up in these relationships, these three relationships in my life.
Yeah.
And this was the final straw for me. Because I told my mom, I said, look, as a woman, I understand. But as a mother,
It's a whole different story.
every single relationship that I have had to leave, well, the first one I was super young. I was a kid, 22. But after my son's dad and my most recent ex-husband, I could never. I didn't even want to stay with my son's dad because of infidelity.
Mm-hmm.
He never yelled at me. He never hit me. He never said anything demeaning to me. But his mentality was, well, my dad has a separate mistress and my mom's cool with it. So why wouldn't you be? And that's what I mean by mindsets, right? When
Yeah.
we talk about individual, micro, macro, how that
Right.
all plays a
Right.
part into like self-identity.
Mm-hmm.
I had to realize that, well, that's how he grew up. So of course that's going to be normalized in his family structure. And as far as my ex-husband, it was the same kind of mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more so of like, well, he's willing to pay all of the bills. He's willing to be the breadwinner for your family. So if he goes out and cheats every now and then, it's like, there are men that are worse. And so I had to look at it from the understanding of like standards and expectations for everyone is not going to be the same.
Right.
Based off of what is normalized within their family dynamics growing up. So I was able to look at it from that higher perspective. But as a person who is dealing with the grief of everything that has just happened to me, the level of anger and just trying to come to peace with it was the hard part.
Did you start to get depressed at all, or like think of your self-worth like it was just low?
It
Like, because they're
wasn't.
not seeing you,
No, and
Okay,
that's
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 amazing.
that's the wild part though, because this is what happened. Because of the situation that happened and the way that it unfolded with my son's dad, I didn't have time to like really sit back and think like what's wrong with me, if that makes
No,
sense.
it does.
Because I said to myself, listen, you've shown up honest, you've shown up authentic, you've effectively communicated and tried to provide a safe space for the people around you. I don't think you're the issue. And it makes it even better because I did have a therapist that I
Yeah.
had been working with just for work related stuff
Okay.
for, I don't know, 6 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm telling her all the things that transpired in Chicago, she's like, "No, you're not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're
And
not
she knows you.
right."
Yeah.
And it's I guess we can debate between objective and subjective if we've already built that relationship. But the fact that this is her career, she's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I can sit back here and tell you like family dysfunction. This is how it's played out in multiple
Right.
ways. You were kind of thrown into it, but it's different because you are focusing on psychology. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
school for this, right?
Right.
So like take yourself out of the situation and I want you to think about it like what do you already know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, okay. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy. I'm not the problem. I've been honest. I've been authentic. And the
Thank
same,
God you were already in that headspace
yeah,
though, because there's so many people that just aren't. They're not that strong.
right. But that's the very same thing that everyone has weaponized against me.
You're so strong. You're
Right.
so strong. You can handle
Everyone,
anything.
right.
Yeah.
And everyone has repeated that to me on multiple occasions in my life, to include my own family members.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm having the conversation with my mom, and she's doing the same thing. Dismissive, deflective. Well, it wasn't as bad as I had it growing up. So it's not that bad. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to connect the dots for you in a way that makes you understand how we all turned out the way that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And
Is she open to that?
she's slowly becoming more open to it.
Okay.
And I think she's only more open to it because my brother committed suicide in 2022.
Oh no.
And that's why when my ex-husband had said that he was suicidal, he knew about my brother's suicide. So to use that was like an extra,
Oh.
that's an extra combo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
Right. And he knew that during that time, I had postpartum depression because it was just me and single motherhood now.
Mm-hmm.
My brother committed suicide 3 days before my son's first birthday. So I not only had to show up for my son's first birthday, but I had to plan my brother's funeral because my sister can't do it. My mom can't do it. They're already both emotionally checked out because they're the ones that found him.
The strong one has to do it.
Right. And that's how I understood my role within my own family. So I brought that up to my mom in our conversation as well. I said, listen, I've always been the family therapist, which is why I've had to be the one that's emotionally regulated, which is why I've had to be the one that's showing up and being the mediator in the family. Right? I'm the one that's calling everybody together. We're dealing with my brother's issues. We're dealing with my sister's issues. And I'm to be quite frank, I'm the one kid that growing up, you were like, well, I don't have to worry about her. No, she's fine. She's gonna be successful. I don't have to worry about her. I said, yeah, and I was so independent because I was the one kid that you didn't have to worry about, right?
Exactly.
I didn't have a choice. I always had to figure it out. Whereas my elder brother and sister, they always lived with my mom, even into adulthood. My sister's in her 40s and she still lives with my mom. My mom's been giving her free childcare her whole life.
Okay.
So it's like, Mom, look at this is a generational cycle that's getting repeated.
But if they don't want to see it, they won't.
No.
That's the problem. Even you being the strong one, you still want to be seen.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you become hyper independent, hyper vigilant, all the things, hyper extreme, everything. And look at me, I did this now. I'm over here.
Yep.
And they just like assume that you're going to do great things.
And
just
then I realized that's why all of the partners that came into my life, the very same things that they loved about me were the very same things that they were trying to dismantle about me once we got together. Oh, I see how you're respected in your community and you're doing this at work and people love you and this, that, and the fourth. I see that you're doing this in school and your professors talk about you this way. And because they're coming around with me, you know, like my ex-husband did a ride along with me. He knows what I do for work, you know? And so I'm having this conversation with my mom. We're going into all of these details. And I'm like, you have continued to live in this state of denial, which is how we've gotten to this point with my brother, with my sister, and now with me. And I just refuse to continue to like be in this toxic cycle. Yeah. And I realize that sometimes when you are the one that's breaking that generational cycle without having a healthy blueprint, because that's a whole other conversation, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you're going to catch slack from your parents for that too. And then I really had to think about in my family dynamic, my grandmother didn't have a healthy relationship with my grandfather. He was a breadwinner, right? But he had 4 different women show up to the funeral for my great-grandmother's funeral, right? So those kind of mindsets are what get passed down. Right. And then with my mom and her relationship, her marriage with my dad, her marriage with my stepdad. Those are things that are still reflected, right?
So was stepdad abusive too?
Yes.
Okay. Physical, emotional, both?
Emotional and psychological.
Wow.
And financial.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we didn't have these conversations to provide clarity when I came of dating age. And I'm like, that was when it was so important.
Sure.
Because it would have changed my perception of what I allowed into my life. And then to realize that with my ex-husband and his family, everyone's looking at him, well, like, he is our pinnacle of a good man. Right. Because the men that we know are physically abusive, are far worse than what he is. So he can't be that bad. And then I that's why I say, like, I had to realize this is all based off of how everybody views their perception, how they grew up, what's normalized to them.
All the generational trauma.
All of it. All of it. And then I got to this point. And I found out after I had had a conversation with my sister that she slept with my ex-husband as well.
Stop.
So he knew that my sister and I had a strained relationship way before, years back. And he used that as an extra, as an extra knife to say, okay.
How'd you find out? He made sure he ran his mouth about it, or?
No. So here's the kicker. She did. So I said, when he came to ask for our hand in marriage at my dinner table at my house, she started crying at the table. And I said, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" And she said, "Well, you have other options." And she was right. I did have other options of people who were interested, but I was like, I'm not interested. What I've been doing with school, with work. I wasn't interested in dating anybody else. He came back into my life. We already have a history. This is why and it's not like I'm chasing him down. Like, he's been flying halfway across
Right.
the United States for almost a year
Yeah.
to get me back into this point. And it didn't make sense to me at the time. I just dismissed it.
She was upset that you were choosing that. She knew.
Yes. And so I confronted her and I said, all of these years, I would ignore the fact that I felt like you were trying to compete with me, that you were jealous, that you felt like you had something to prove, even though you were our mother's golden child. And I said to go behind my back and try to sleep behind me. Like, what does that do for you? What do you
Right.
gain? They're not marrying you. They're not having kids. Like, what is the point?
Right.
If you feel like that is the only way that you can cut me down, do better.
Because that's not helping you be seen any better.
No.
Mm-mm.
And I had the conversation in front of my mother, and she immediately said my ex-husband's name. And
Did your mom know?
that's when my mother knew. That's when it clicked for my mom as well. Because she was in denial. She kept saying, "No, your sister's not jealous of you. She just admires you." It's just admiration. So imagine having two people essentially lying to you and gaslighting you and saying, "No, it's not what you think it is." Absolutely, it's
Two
not.
people that you're supposed to trust more
Right.
than most,
Right.
right?
So after we have that conversation, I had to leave. I left the house and I realized I have grown up around nothing but dysfunction, and the people that have come into my life, especially my ex-husband, that's like the devil incarnate at this point. And she's crying, she's upset. "Well, you chose to marry him." I said, he asked for my hand.
Yeah.
I didn't chase him down. I didn't chase anybody down that I've dated before.
And never in a million years would you have thought that your sister slept with him.
Correct.
Holy shit.
But when you're a sex addict, anything that's
Oh, yeah, they don't.
walking
Yeah.
that looks
If it
like
moves.
right.
Yeah. Wow. Do you and your sister repair things?
We will never talk again.
Okay.
And I let that be very clearly known.
From that moment.
From that moment. And even with my mom, we've had multiple conversations where it's just like the level of denial that you live in. It's like it has to get to the point where you have nothing left in order for you to realize what's going on.
And they won't.
No.
Until they absolutely have to.
Right.
And that might never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness.
So I had just been in isolation.
Yeah, because how do you trust anyone?
Mm-hmm. I'd been in isolation. I've been going to class. Thank God I rolled right into my master's program.
Yeah, because this is just late last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't been that long.
So literally November to January. I was there for almost 2 months in Chicago. I get back and realize all of the things that have just unfolded. And this person has known me for 9.5 years at this point.
Yeah.
This person knows my previous relationships. This person knows my family and their issues and has utilized that information to completely try to decimate me. And the same person that has been telling their friends and family, she's crazy, she's jealous, she's insecure. No, dude, that's who you are and have been this entire time.
Right.
And you're trying to project that onto me, or you're trying to put me in a mental health space where I feel low, right? Where I would feel low about myself because it's like, why do all these people around me keep betraying me?
Why do start to think it's your fault. There is something wrong with you. Like,
right.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And some of the most honest conversations I've ever had has been with strangers. Mm-hmm. And some of the most caring and honest people I've ever met have not come from my immediate circle.
And that's sad, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But it's reality.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Now imagine, right? I'm doing And every time that I've been in a tumultuous relationship, I've been at the height of my career. Every single time. So I jokingly say now that the devil couldn't get to my ambition, so he always sent in life partners under the facade of love and support when they were really just trying to break me.
Right.
I'm sitting here and I'm giving these presentations about intimate partner violence down at UW. And I'm getting the emotional whiplash of realizing, like, I was just in an emotionally and psychologically, like, abusive marriage. I've had to deal with betrayal with my son's dad because that was normalized for them.
Is he still out of the picture with all this is going on?
My son's dad?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And we had a conversation a couple weeks ago, and we were honest about what was going on. And he said, yeah, well, your sister did try with me. And I turned her down, but he's like, I thought you knew. I thought you knew when we started arguing.
It's like with family like that, who needs enemies, right?
Hello. Shit. But if your mom never had a successful relationship and your sisters never had a successful relationship, and they see that you're trying to make the changes and the choices to have so, sometimes that envy gets turned up a notch.
See, I just have the hardest time with that because I'm like a girl's girl, all those things. I don't think you should ever, I don't care if it was somebody's boyfriend 20 years ago and they just kiss. You don't touch those people. They're off limits.
Well, I even take it up a notch. I'm never jealous of envious of somebody else's life because I don't know what they had to go through to get there. I could possibly be looking at a part of a chapter and I have no idea what the rest of the book looks like.
Yes.
Yeah, that person got that new car. Great. They bought that new property. Great. They got married. They have kids that are happy. Great. I have no idea what they had to lose in order to get to that point. And if God were to sit me down and say, well, if you want that, you're going to have to go through this. Are you going to take it?
Right.
And I don't think people think about it that way.
They don't.
They'll automatically see, oh, well, she's gorgeous.
Right.
But if God were to tell you, oh, well, she's gone through X, Y, and Z, though. She's been assaulted.
Right.
She's been down in the dumps. She's been homeless at one point in time. Do you still want it?
Right.
Most people would say no. But we're not looking at it that way. We're looking at it at the surface level. And so even when I thought about my ex-husband, it's like I really think, like I just feel that's a pitiful human experience. To know nothing but transactional relationships.
Right.
Whether it's with his family.
Because it's like that with his family too.
Right. Whether it's with his friends and whether it's with anyone else that he has dated. So, of course, if you've been in relationships or chosen previous partners where he's felt like he's had an upper hand as far as power dynamics, right? Because of his career, because of the money he was making, that he was like, oh, yeah, no, my first wife, she was a stripper. Of course, that's a running joke in the army, military. It is. He's laughing. It is, You get stationed somewhere. You're like going out to the strip club on the weekend. You pick a girl up and you're like, yeah, wife. Girl, I'm going to change your life, right? You know? And then I do remember that, like, 2 other of his wives, it was like, well, they just needed green cards. So he's always wanted to have the upper hand and dictate in that relationship. So when it came to me, it was like, well, she's got her own property. She's educated. She's well respected within her community.
They're threatened by that.
She makes more money than I do. What can I do to like get her to the point where I feel comfortable in our relationship dynamic?
Right.
Let me give her this nice promise that's wrapped up all nice and pretty. And then when I get there, let me rip it from underneath her. And hope that I've broken her enough to mentally stay.
Yes.
Now, when we talk about people who have, because I'm in law enforcement, obviously I'm going to school. And when we're learning about domestic violence and psychological abuse and emotional abuse, he's a sexual assault response coordinator in a Northern Chicago Marine Reserve unit base. That's his job. He gets the same training, knows all the same tactics, but just uses it for evil. That's why I'm second guessing when we're having conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, am I not communicating my needs clearly? Am I not saying what I need? Like, is this not
Well, he wants you to second guess yourself.
right?
Because
And
you have
then
to be beneath him
right.
for him to be happy.
And the minute that I ever had valid points in a conversation, we'll stop trying to psychoanalyze me. Am I trying to psychoanalyze you, or am I just effectively communicating my needs and wants, and you're just telling me that you're not needing them, so you're trying to change the trajectory of the conversation to make it seem like I'm a crazy person?
Of course.
Got it. Okay. But this took me separating from him and getting back to Washington and realizing, oh crap, this is just what I've been through.
Right. And something I've seen just recently, we had a girl here from Utah, and she went through like horrible domestic violence for like 18 years. And even online, listening to people like, and it starts to piss me off, and sometimes I'll, say something back, because they'll say stuff like, well, why didn't you just leave? And why didn't you this? And why didn't you that? And you should have done this. And you should have left after he did this. People don't realize where it's like you feel like you don't even have a brain. Like, I just couldn't. I couldn't leave. I didn't think I had the strength to. I thought I was a shit person because that's what he was always telling me. Like, there's all these things that people don't think about. They don't stop and think for a minute and try to put themselves in someone's shoes.
Right. And I'll be
and they have no clue.
Right. And I'll be quite frank, if I didn't have experience in law enforcement working with domestic violence survivors, if I wasn't going to get my master's in social work, if I didn't have a separate support from the people that were around me, like a therapist, and if I didn't have financial backing, I wouldn't have been able to leave not even my first marriage.
Right. Right.
You can't leave any tumultuous relationship when you don't have those kind of resources lined up. And you have women who get into those relationships, right? Because this person lied to them.
Right.
They lied to them. So now you're telling me that they have to figure all of this out while being mentally abused.
Right.
And we're just sitting there telling them, you should have just left.
Right. You should have just called the police. You should have this. You should have went to your parents.
And even if you leave and you have children, the way that the system is set up, especially when it comes to, there's a reason why criminal court and family court are separate. One judge is not going to trump another one. Right. Now, in some extreme cases, they may say, hey, you are such a danger to the mom that we are going to place the kids on the protection order as well. Right. But oftentimes, you know what they'll do? They'll say, yeah, you'll have a protection order against you and mom, but dad still gets visitation rights. Right? Absolutely. So now you still have to share custody with your abuser. Now I still have to worry about the finances, whether they want to pay child support or not, how this is going to work in the court system. And then family court will say, and I've seen it in Washington State, oh, parents have criminal records. They've got drug issues. Well, we're more focused on reunification. Right. You guys got to figure it out. Yeah, dad's a danger to you, but we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he's dangerous to the kids. And even then, they'll still say, well, he'll get supervised visitation.
Right. He can go to 3 or 4 classes and he'll be rehabilitated.
Right.
Just, it's crazy.
And if that weren't the case, we wouldn't have so many situations where we read the news and see that the kids have continuously been used as a pawn.
Of course.
To maintain contact with that abuser. Even if, and that's the frustrating part, you take a Psych 101 class and it's like, we see the power and control wheel and children are still an extension of that. But we blame women for not leaving.
Yeah. It's always the woman's fault.
Right. You should have made better choices. Or they should have just been better people.
Yeah.
That works too. And even when I see it at work.
That gets me fired up.
Yeah. Yeah. And even when I see it at work, like sometimes my coworkers will get frustrated and, they don't know my personal story. But sometimes I want to just look and say, well, I'm a domestic violence survivor. Am I an idiot to you?
Right. I've said it so many. I mean, my specialty was psych and addiction for 20 some years, but I came from bad domestic violence, all the things growing up. Yeah. What do I choose? Oh, and I had a child at the time that wasn't even his, but I got the shit beat out. Like, when I look back now, I'm like, God, I should have known better. But I was young and I was beat down. Yep. And it doesn't matter if I know, all the psychological things. I know all the things that
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to know, but when I'm in it, I wasn't able to
Right.
handle and
Yep.
deal. I couldn't.
Yeah.
It's like you're under a spell.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it pisses me off when people like say those things because they have no clue.
Right.
They
Or
have no
it's
clue.
like, this is the eighth time that
Yeah.
we've shown up to the house.
Right.
Well, it takes domestic violence survivors
Yeah.
on average about 8 times to leave. But guess what she is doing every time that we show up? I'm going to give her my card. I'm going
Hmm.
to give her information on
Right.
resources. And she's planning every single time that we show up. And I don't care if she's adding just more information to her tool belt.
Right.
Eventually, she's going to get to the point where she's going to say, I'm ready to leave.
Yeah. And don't get us wrong. 9 times out of 10, it's a man,
Yes.
but there are women too.
Yes.
Like, cause I
Yes.
know people will criticize about that, but a majority, it is a man.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean,
who's the
even for
abuser.
LGBTQ community, I know that they're still, they're coming out with research for that.
Okay.
They by far have far more violent incidents of domestic
Right.
violence because it's taking less serious.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we typically think about relationships, it's from a heteronormative perspective, and so
Right.
it's always based off of men and women,
Right.
which is its own. Again, that could be its own separate conversation.
For
But
sure.
it's
Yes.
when we talk about culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the part that makes me, I had to think about it from that perspective of, yes, these things happen to me individually, but how did the community play a part in it?
Yeah.
How did the system play a part in it? And I think the grace of God, me being able to have all of the different perspectives that I have once I got back to just being by myself in my
Mm-hmm.
own space and mind, mental clarity. I was
How were
able.
you when you came back? Like after hearing,
Mhm.
about what your sister had done and you're back and all that just happened, and then you have your son and you're alone. Like, what state of mind were you in, if you don't mind sharing? I'm just curious because you are strong. You are a strong person and you have been through a lot, but we also have weaknesses,
Mhm.
that we're not as strong as everyone thinks you are. What did you go through during that? Or did you just like say,
I
that's it? I'm
snot nose cried a lot.
okay.
Snot nose crying in the shower, melting down the wall.
Yeah.
Why me, God?
Mm-hmm.
What did I do to deserve any of this? And I really had to process through that part as well. And
Yeah.
that's how I was saying, if I didn't have Shanae, my therapist, if I didn't have her in the way that I did, I would feel a lot crazier.
I bet.
If I didn't have financial resources to be able to still make sure that my bills were paid after I had left my career the second time,
Right.
I would completely be in a different headspace, 1000%.
Yeah.
Right, because that is 1000% survival mode when you're worried about where your
For
next
sure.
meal is going to come from,
Yes.
which is another thing that people don't take into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to realize, I made a cup of coffee one morning and I walked downstairs and I took a deep breath and I said, but I'm safe and I've built the life that I wanted to build for myself because of how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I've bought a house that I don't have to worry about anybody else's energy dictating how my day is going to be.
Or anyone taking it from you.
Right.
Or, yeah.
And that was, again, a byproduct of how we grew up. I remember my stepdad had kicked us out in the middle of the night. And so I said, I will never be in a situation financially where somebody is dictating where I lay my head at night.
Right.
And I've made all of those decisions because of that.
Right.
Because I, joining the Army, getting out,
Right.
going straight into civilian law enforcement, going straight into school. I made all of those decisions because of how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom kind of ignoring me the way that she did aided in that. Because it was just like, well, I got to figure it out anyway. So
Right.
I'm going to make sure that my foundation is at least solid in this aspect. And that brings me to the point of, Abraham Maslow's theory.
Yeah.
Right? The hierarchy theory. When we talk about like physiological needs, air, water, shelter, warmth, right?
Right.
For my mom, if she didn't have that, she's going to make sure that that's all her kids have. Because in her mind, that is the foundation that she never had, so that's good enough.
Right.
We're not even looking at the higher. We're not even looking at any other part of that tier, right? And for me, it's like, well, that was great, but it wasn't enough. Let's look
I
at the
always thought too.
self-esteem part. Let's look at the love and sense of belonging. And then let's
Right.
get to a point where self-actualization is it's like we're capable of getting there.
Right.
And because I had tried to make sure that I provided those basic needs for my son, and I'm able to look at the higher parts of that pyramid, I want to make sure that he's able to get to this point of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what relationships I have to leave, regardless of what communities I have to cut out of my life, regardless of what jobs that I have to get rid of, because and that's a part of breaking that generational curse. I want to get to that point where he is not only physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially safe, but that he has the point of his life to realize, like, man, I have the freedom to just try and figure out who I am as a person and what my purpose is.
Right. It's our job.
Right. But your parents sometimes are going to be upset with you for breaking those cycles because they weren't able to.
I always tell people too, when it comes to generational traumas and when you break these traumas, it could be the loneliest time of your life.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I can't, my mom's never gonna, she can love, I think it's coming from a place of love, but I still know that there is a tinge of, well, how did you figure it out? And I didn't. And I didn't even teach you all of these things.
It's like jealousy, but not jealousy.
Right.
Like they're envious of that when you want them to be proud of you.
Right.
And be happy that you did it. And it just doesn't come out that way. I've been there, girl.
And even for my sister, we've grown up in the same household. We had the opportunity to make the same decisions. If not, she's had more opportunity than I have, because even when she had the kids super young, my mom was always there supporting her and changing her jobs to make sure she can go to college and all of the above, whereas I had to just figure it out. I noticed that the frustration, especially like with me and my mom's relationship, was that it was like, how are you able to have these conversations with me now in adulthood after everything that you've experienced, and you're still wanting to make better choices for yourself? And I didn't teach you this information. Right. So it's like, yeah, you're breaking these curses, or at least trying to, because you're not staying in these relationships as long as I did. You know, I'm not staying in that marriage for 10 years, 15 years while this person is still doing all of these things, you know? And so, but I still had to, a part of the curse was I still had to go through them.
Yeah.
Because we never had those honest conversations about what occurred.
Yes.
Right? We never had those dating, vetting conversations of like, this is what you should expect.
Right.
So it's literally like I got thrown to the wolves. I went out into the world and got thrown to the wolves.
Right.
And even when it came to my sister, we all grew up in the same house, but we just made different decisions. And so sometimes the jealousy and envy can come from, well, how is it that you're still making these decisions and we both grew up in the same house and had the same opportunities, but you're doing this?
Where like you're sitting there going, just ask me. Let's help each other. Be my cheerleader. Let's be each other's cheerleader. That's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And people get in their own way.
And imagine when you're showing up authentically in your relationships, in your friendships, in your work environment, in your family. And because everybody else puts on a mask every day, you're being labeled as the crazy one.
Right.
Right? You're the one that's the problem when you're calling out the dysfunction. Well, dysfunction operates best when nobody questions the rules.
Yes.
That's the whole point of it. So yes, in this family dynamic, you guys have normalized infidelity. In this family dynamic, you guys have normalized making your partner's self-esteem low. Right? And your expectation is when you and I have come together that it's like, well, how dare you love yourself enough to leave? How dare you love yourself enough to question how everybody else in my family has been raised? How we've done things within my own family dynamic.
Yeah, you become the problem.
Right. Or the black sheep, as people like to say. Right? You're not the black sheep. What's that saying, that generational trauma will continue to happen until somebody in the family is willing to feel all of the emotions or feel all of the... And I'm like, well, somebody's feeling it.
Right. Yeah.
The amount of fights has been between like Tyson and Holyfield at this point, you know?
I used to always get, you forget where you came from. No, I very much so remember. And that's why I don't want to be anywhere near it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because you go on with life and you do things and you're successful. And then that's like a problem
Mm-hmm.
for the people that are still stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And you're never going to change their mind.
Nope. The same way that at the end of
Until
the
they
day,
decide themselves.
right.
But good luck with that,
And I
right?
can sit here and I could have been as honest as I was with my ex-husband and said, dude, if you're struggling with mental health, if you're struggling with substance abuse, if you're struggling with alcoholism, you have to do the work. But all of the relationships in my life, to include my intimate partners as well as my family, everybody has expected me to carry the emotional weight for everybody. Everybody has expected me to show up as a therapist and to be the one that's the mediator.
Right.
And that's how I've continued. In a way, that's self-abandonment, right? Because I'm doing it to appease everybody else.
Yes.
The minute that I came back and had all of the honest conversations that I did with everyone, to include my ex-husband, you'll never hear from me again. I laid everything out for everybody and I said, I'm cleaning house.
Right.
Because I'm looking at the little person that stares up at me every day and I absolutely refuse to allow him to go through this.
Right.
And he may not have the best male role models in his life right now, but even if it turns out to be a coworker, that's a good role model for him.
It's better than a shitty one.
Right. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be an intimate partner for me. Right. As long as he has someone in his life that is able to show up and say, hey, this is how you treat women.
Yes.
This is how you talk to women. This is how you respect women. Then I'm okay with that. That's better than absolutely nothing.
Right.
And I'm also not going to continue the generational cycle of the inability to have communication. I'm going to admit to my son the mistakes that I made because I didn't know any better. But once I learned better, I did better.
Right. That's what matters.
And that's what comes with self-mastery of experiences. Yes. Sometimes you have to go through it to get through it. And me going through it, it's like, okay, yes, this sucked. Yes, there's grief attached to this. What's the lesson?
Right.
What can I really take from this so that I do not repeat the same mistakes?
Right.
And I had to look at it from a bigger picture. My first relationship was physically abusive. My second relationship dealt with infidelity and how children are used as power dynamics in a relationship. My now ex-husband has shown me what a trifecta looks like.
He sure did.
Right? But that was like the final boss. That was Bowser. Okay? that was Bowser. Because now it's like, okay, buddy, you may have won the battle.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to win the war.
Right.
I'm still here. And instead of me showing back up into the world with shame, that's not mine to carry because I didn't do any of the things to you that you've done to me.
Right.
I'm still going to show up with more empathy, more kindness, more understanding. And you know what else you did for me, buddy? You're going to make me better at my job. You're going to make me a better advocate.
Right.
You're going to make me a better mother.
So thank you in the end.
And thank you for exposing my own family dynamic weaknesses. Because now I know what boundaries and expectations and standards that I have to set for the people around me and the people that were already in my life.
So where do you go from here as far as being able to trust people?
That's going to be work within
Long
itself.
Process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand that's going to be work.
That's okay.
Yeah. But I think a part of it too is, again, when we talk about like survivors and we try and shame them for their story, that's not her shame to carry. That's not his shame to carry.
Right.
It's the people in communities that did that to that person.
Yes. It's the abusers.
Right.
They're always the one to blame.
Right.
And no one gets that.
So tell your story because they thrive in your silence.
Oh, yes.
Abusers thrive in silence. They want you to be complicit with their actions. Because you're not going against the grain. You're not going against the status quo. And then you're also showing them, okay, but you didn't break me.
I can't wait for people to hear your story. Because it's strong. It's powerful. It's, when you're in those situations, it can go so many different ways.
For sure.
So many different ways.
I'm just glad that my son was there too, because I really think that a lot of it goes back to him. And once I became a mother, I really stopped carrying the weight of other people's expectations.
Right.
In terms of, well, don't leave the relationship because you don't want to be a single mom. Right. You're afraid of the stigma.
Say that all the time.
Right. You don't want to be a single mom. Don't.
Yeah.
Just make it work.
I can't do it on my own.
Right. Just make it work. Well, you just got married. Why would you leave your ex-husband? You guys just got married. Why would you leave? Well, because he did X, Y, and Z.
Right.
I think one of them is enough to leave, but
yes,
finding out about all the rest of it, right? Having a conversation, confronting that person.
Did you ever confront him on the other stuff, or did you just let it go? Like your
as far
sister,
as my sister?
Yeah.
We never had a sit down conversation about it, but he confirmed it because after I had sent him an email, I pretty much said, like, you know, you don't want to change, that's fine. You're a drug addict, you're a sex addict. This is what you have going on mental health wise. You refuse to do the work.
Right.
Coming into my life under this facade and painting me out to be the crazy person to your friends, family, and community when they have no idea how you actually operate and how strategic you are.
Right. Or maybe they do.
Right.
I mean, who knows? Not for you to worry about anymore, though.
And then I said, and as far as my sister is concerned, thank you. And then he called my mom.
Stop. For what? For his side of the story?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
He couldn't help himself on that one, huh?
And so that's how everything lined up. People always tell themselves eventually.
Well, they do, yes.
And even my sister, when we had the conversation, the fact that she said his name first was like, well, I never said who it was. But thank you for confirming.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Got it.
So when I leave out of people's lives and there's no more communication, you can't question why I left. There's no room for, well, maybe we can reconcile, or maybe you should have gave this person more space to work it out, or think about it from their perspective. I can think about it from their perspective, but that's very sad and pitiful.
Yes. And it's not the toxic relationships that you want in your life.
No, not at all. I don't want to make an excuse for that behavior.
Because I don't think people really change that much unless they absolutely want to. So you'd be struggling with that for a long time, family or not.
And people always say midlife crisis, midlife awakening, midlife clarity.
Yeah.
Because then it just clears the way for like, okay, now I get to knock down all of the Lego blocks and I'm going to build the life that I want.
Right.
With the people in it that I want.
Right. And it's never too late. A lot of people think too, if they've been in a situation for years and, you know, they're stuck, they don't have any other choices. It's never too late to start over.
And you always have a choice. They may try and trick you to make you feel like you don't have a choice. Right. And the choices may not be comfortable. But you've always got a choice.
You do. Wow. No, I really am excited for people to hear this because there's a lot of empowerment.
I hope so. I know I was probably all over the place. I had my notes sitting down here and I'm like, I didn't even look at them not once. I didn't even look at them not once.
No, I think it's I think you have an amazing story and it has to empower people when they hear it.
I hope so. And then I really do hope that from like a larger perspective, just the conversation of intimate partner violence or domestic violence, it changes people's perceptions because it really can happen to anybody.
Right.
And I think we oftentimes have this, and, you know, I know obviously stats match with certain socioeconomic statuses that, and, you know, demographics that match with you are more likely, right? But that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen to anybody and everybody. And now that we're more aware of the different levels and the different categories of it, you might want to have a conversation with grandma. You might want to have a conversation with your mother, with your aunt, because there are more than just women who are getting physically abused or men getting physically abused. Reproductive abuse is a thing. Grandma has 7 kids because she didn't have a choice. Right? She couldn't just leave because the only job that was available for her was a maid or a house teacher. And guess what? Legally, she couldn't own a bank account. She couldn't rent an apartment because they can discriminate against her for that. Right? We have to take all of these things into consideration and then realize that, yes, the younger generations have more options when it comes to financial freedom, but how hard is it to break the mental normalization of things? when your mom and your grandma are telling you, oh, he's better than how your grandfather was.
Right.
You know, this.
Like, you should be happy with that.
Right.
Yeah. It's a real thing. Wow. So where do you think, like, where do you feel like you're at now? Because it's been what, 8 months-ish? How far, like, kind of like let everyone know how you've progressed and how far you've come from ugly crying, and snot crying or whatever kind of I can imagine.
Yeah.
Like what you went through to where you are now.
When I thought about, so I read a book a while ago. It didn't start with you, and how inherited, family trauma shapes you and how to break the cycle. I think it was Mark Wolin. And The Body Keeps Score. And so I realized, okay, the very foundation that I thought that I had is destroyed. And so I'm going to cry about it. I'm going to go to the shooting range. I'm going to do somatic exercises. I'm going to go to the rage room. I'm going to go to therapy. And I'm going to put myself in a position where I'm the happiest and healthiest person I've ever been. But I've got to feel it, and I've got to get through it. And that's the part that I think a lot of people, it's ugly.
It's not fun.
And
Absolutely not.
And it's not linear, and it's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to be what everybody else goes through. What works for you is going to work for you. But one day you are going to wake up and say, man, what a blessing it was at the end of the day to get to this point and realize that I don't need these people in my life.
Right.
And so it was about the 4th month that I was back where all of the blessings started coming in at once. And that's when I was like, okay, this is the definition of when you get people out of your life that were never supposed to be there, God gives you your blessings.
Right.
Meaning he's not going to give you your purpose. He's not going to give you the things that you're supposed to be doing when you're still surrounded by people that he doesn't want there.
Right.
I got rehired by a different department, making two and a half times what I was making before. I'm able to afford a private nanny for my son. All of his medical coverage is going to be under this. I got accepted into the grad school that I wanted, which was like the first school of social work in the U.S. I wrote a book. I published my diary from this experience. My therapist was like, hey, I just think you should journal. And I found like a self-publishing thing. And I was just like, you know what? Somebody else might need this story too.
We have to make sure that you give that to Kenna so she can post it.
And it's like a raw, the grammar looks messed up because it's like the pen moves faster than your thoughts. But I want to get these thoughts out. And it talks about betrayal and trauma and generational cycles and getting to a point and trusting yourself and believing in yourself that like there is the blessing and the lesson. And then I'm able to do this, get to a point where I'm able to talk about it.
Right.
And not be ashamed of it. And I get it. There's probably still going to be some people on the internet that are like, you're a cop. You're getting your master's in social work. What do you mean you went through this?
Right.
On more than one occasion?
Right.
Well, then read the studies, dude, of how intimate partner violence and adverse childhood experiences, how the cycles tend to repeat.
Right. They do.
And the work that has to be done behind the scenes to really try and break that, and how you are going to be ostracized when you're the black sheep and you're calling things out, and you have to be comfortable with being alone.
Right.
And I've always thrived in solitude. It wasn't until I invited people into my world that my world started to crumble.
That's an important point.
Yeah. But now I'm at a point where I can accept things for what they are. And I'm okay with that. And if that makes me the villain in anybody else's story, oogity boogity. Like I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, girl, I see you.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Amazing.
No, this is amazing. This platform
just that you're able to come here and tell it all.
Right.
Is amazing. I love it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.